Do you think Boston has healed, given all that you've seen?
I think Boston is beginning to heal.
Folks may be familiar with the saying, just pray it away. It is a common response, often from church folk, to healing from grief and trauma. But Reverend Walker, is prayer alone enough?
Prayer is never enough alone. And people confuse me, when I say that, they think I'm saying prayer's not good. Prayer is wonderful. But when you're talking about deep wounds and the need for kind of deeper healing, it takes some work. It takes some inner work. So we always say prayer is not enough by itself. Yeah.
And you have really, your whole entire book is about looking at those deep inner workings of healing, right, specifically collectively. And you start by talking about this interfaith service that you helped lead in the aftermath of the Boston Marathon bombing. You also talk about the murder of a young man named Corey Johnson, who was in your community and in your church congregation, his family, and what that looked like. And then also just thinking about your own career as a titan, a legend here in Boston's news industry, paving the way for people like me, and coming just in the aftermath of a really contentious time in the city. And so that makes me wonder, do you think Boston has healed, given all that you've seen?
I think Boston is beginning to heal. But I think Boston, just like the rest of this country, is in need of healing. Racial healing, cultural healing, historical healing. Until this nation faces the pain that it has caused and goes through, it's not going to heal. It's the very same thing for individuals. Now, everybody's not walking around with deep wounds, but a lot of us are. And we usually suppress them and we usually ignore them. But what we say is that when you've been traumatized by a situation, experience, or witnessing something, it has to be dealt with. It has to be attended to. And if it's not tended, then it may be suppressed for a while, but it'll come up. You mentioned Corey Johnson. Corey Johnson was a young man in our church who was killed in what I believe, and it has not been proven yet or solved, was some kind of gang violence, ongoing gang violence. Now, his murder was never solved. So his family and friends are still walking around with untended wounds themselves because they don't have any way of knowing what happened. That's the kind of trauma we're talking about, but it extends beyond that to all kinds of things that happen to us and we need to deal with. Yeah.
Now, you write in your book that you believe churches are some of the most uniquely equipped institutions to respond to this kind of collective grief and trauma. Why is that?
I believe that churches have the already inherent ability to cope with those things that we cannot see, but become obstacles in our lives. Now, I think churches are not doing a great job at dealing with that right now. We know how to worship, we know how to, do the business of church growth and all those things. And I'm speaking of the church universal, not any one church. So what our program does, it's not a replacement for churches, but it reminds people of faith that one of the basic things we need to do is help each other heal.
And this is Can We Talk, where you invite people in to share a meal and to just talk and listen. To talk.
And not to be judged, because churches tend to do that, not to be condemned.
Come on now, preach, Rev.
Because, that's how we tend to live our lives as church people and people. We condemn each other. We put up barriers, across our lives, but we don't listen to each other. And we don't accept the fact that we are all wounded. We are all wounded. And so talking about it helps. We say it, Can We Talk, in the program that we started. We can't heal you in the sense of fixing your problem. If you've lost a loved one, we're not bringing that loved one back, nor are we getting closure, trying to get closure. We help you find a way through. And it's a universal need for community healing. Because I think we're all going through, with COVID, with the current political situation, we're all going through trauma right now, or fear, or just anxiety. And if you hold it in, it's going to come back to bite you. So that's what I believe we owe each other a way through together.
And you have personal experience with this because in the book you talk about your own family, specifically your father, who was a pastor, who you lost at a young age, but then also your mother, who died giving birth to you.
Yeah.
And how did those experiences shape the way not only that you may have silenced your grief and trauma, but then when you began to really dig deeper into it, what was that process like?
I only began to dig deeper when I became a part of this program. I'm a social justice advocate, and I've been that all my life. And you want to have programs that help other people. And so this was another one of those programs. But in coming to these gatherings, at first we did them monthly, and then we did them weekly because the people in the community asked for them. I'd listen to other people's stories and somehow began to think about my own wounds that I had never talked about. Mm-hmm. And that's I don't want to call it magic, but that's the mystical part of this. Mm-hmm. When you hear about other people's wounds, you realize that you have your own. Mm-hmm. And this is a way to kind of dig into that. So in doing that, I began to talk to my brother. We had never talked about our childhood, ever, ever, ever. When you grew up in Little Rock, Arkansas in the 50s during civil rights movement and school desegregation, it was just something you had to get through. And you didn't ever want to look back on it because it was rough back in those days. But in talking about it, we realized that we both had wounds in not discussing it. My father died before he told us about our mother. We didn't even know there was another mother. My brother was 3 when she died, but because they didn't talk about it, she went away to the hospital, I imagine in his young mind, or she went away to have another baby and she never came back. And he struggled with that all of his life. And I believe he died with that struggle, but we had begun to talk about it.
Had he lived longer, what do you think a conversation about healing would have been like with?
I think we would have done more conversations on, my brother struggled, and I it sounds like, oh my gosh, she's going to tell all the family secrets, but he struggled with alcohol. Yeah. And we always thought, what is wrong with Charles? Why is he going through all this stuff? He never dealt with any of his pain. So I think that he kind of ran out of time because of his own issues and his own illnesses. But if we had been able to talk about that, we would have, I hope, been able to give him a way out of his kind of prison of addiction. And I know that's true because many of the people who come to our program are from the recovery community and are just looking for another place to help them work through their issues.
So it strikes me what you were saying about needing to confront your own trauma as someone who's doing some healing, because we know that pastors are often seen as people who have a magical way of doing this, but they're struggling themselves. And in fact, a 2024 Barna study found that 1 in 5 senior pastors at Protestant churches reported that they had contemplated self-harm or suicide. And additionally, 47% of them reported feeling lonely or isolated. So when you think about kind of being in community and being able to lean on one another, how does, not only in your persona as a pastor, but knowing that you're this big icon in Boston at the time that you're starting this, right? What do you want support for the healers to look like?
I want the healers to just realize that we're all wounded. And I'm talking about firemen. I'm talking about policemen or police people. I don't know if we put the politically correct way. Anyone who's a caregiver. We're all carrying burdens, not only our burdens, but other people's burdens. Now, preachers are supposed to have all the answers. We have the Bible, we have in the Protestant tradition, we tell you how to get through things, but we carry your wounds. The pastor of the church that I took over, Roxbury Presbyterian Church, until he recognized his own need for healing, because he had been, the pastor for this whole community, he told me recently that the year he left the church, he said he was leaving for a better job, and that's how I got there. But in fact, he was leaving because he was wounded by all the things that had happened, and he only told me that recently. He'd had, I think he had said 37 funerals in 1 year or something like 35 funerals. Think about that. There's 52 weeks in a year, so you're talking about almost every week he's burying somebody, and many of them young people. Can you imagine what that does to his psyche? I mean, first of all, he's there to help people. Maybe he thinks he's there to save people, and he's losing young people. So think about a firefighter. We know that. Think about a police officer who has to go in and see the things that they have to see. And think about alcoholism. Think about all the addictions that are a part of those kinds of jobs. And I know that there are therapists available, and now they're trying to deal with mental health. But our program is much easier than that because we're saying let's just get together, create a safe space, reconnect. Let it be anonymous. This is not about taking notes or checking back in with us. But why not create these safe spaces everywhere? You can just stop in when you want to. It's not required. You don't have to. But if you need it, we're there. I think it helps us restore community. Yeah, so I think it's for everybody, and especially for those who are exposed to secondary trauma.
When you think about the communities in Boston who are affected by various traumas, be it substance abuse and use issues, be it poverty, be it community violence, what are the other resources that need to be put in place? And especially considering all the coverage that you've done in these communities over your career, what are the holes that are missing?
One of the most important things I think we can do as the larger community is to help destigmatize mental health issues. You hear of a mass shooting, and they say, well, we're going to put that 17-year-old in prison and he'll never. Well, that kid, something's unwell. Now, I'm not saying he doesn't have to take responsibility for his actions, but we need to change the narrative on what's happening. And I think that's a resource that we need to make available in every community so that we can begin to see ourselves differently and to see our struggles. We criminalize everything. And we build bigger prisons, and we, give more law enforcement. And again, people want to feel safe, and I get that. But I think we need to look a little bit closer and deeper at the core. Now, this goes back to, I always take it back to Oprah Winfrey, who started talking
There's
about
always
trauma.
an Oprah
There's
connection.
always an Oprah, right? Oprah, our goddess of life. But it's not what's wrong with you. It's what happened to you. And if you can begin to change the narrative, ask different questions, I think that people will genuinely heal. There's so many reasons that we're off kilter right now and feel isolated and feel anxious and feel alone. And but there is a way through. The thing I think is the best resource is our own abilities. We found that healing is about breathing deeper.
Right, which is something we do subconsciously, but forget to be.
We forget what it is. We're all breathing very shallowly, and we're all breathing because we're all worried. It's about movement. It's about a lot of contemplative things that are a part of our heritage, but it's about exercise. There's lots of things it's about eating right. So it's about taking the time to realize all the other ways that can help you in your well-being, and emphasizing that, not just as a sidebar or a thing for rich people or some, feel-good, touchy-feely thing, but as a way to survive. And I think now more than ever, we all need that. We say, when people come to our program, we say, if they say, well, I don't want to talk, I don't want to get up, we say, just catch your breath. Just sit here and breathe a bit and take in what it means to be in a community that's supporting you. So, this is wonderful. I can talk about this with you. Thank you.
Anytime. Thank you for sharing. Well, Reverend Walker, this has been a pleasure. I'll just ask what we ask everyone here on the program. What's one thing that is keeping you rooted right now?
I think my faith keeps me rooted. It's the idea of being grounded in something that's bigger than what's going on, and having a safe space to go internally. So I think my faith is keeping me rooted. And my community. I have a community that supports me and loves me. It's the church. It's the people through the Can We Talk program and the Corey Johnson program. And I seek community everywhere. You're now a part of my community.
Amen. Thank you. And same here. Reverend Walker, this has been a pleasure. Thank you so much.
A delight. Thank you, my sister.